The lost years of Jesus' life. The mysterious gap in Jesus' life. Imagine the life of a man whose story changed the course of history. A man who, over the last 2,000 years, has been the central figure of religion, philosophy, and human thought. His teachings are the foundation of Christianity, the world's largest religion, and his words still echo in the hearts of millions today. Yet, despite the profound impact he's had on humanity, there remains one of the greatest mysteries about his life, the lost years of Jesus. Hi, and welcome to today's deep dive into one of the most enigmatic and controversial aspects of religious history, the lost years of Jesus' life. For nearly 2 decades, the Bible remains completely silent. We read about Jesus as a 12-year-old, in the temple, amazing the teachers with his wisdom. Then silence, no record, no narrative, nothing until he begins his public ministry around the age of 30. So what was Jesus doing during these years? Some say he was working as a carpenter, quietly living in Nazareth. Others speculate that he traveled the world, seeking knowledge and wisdom from various cultures and spiritual traditions. Still, others believe that he was undergoing a period of intense spiritual preparation, preparing himself for the ministry that would alter the course of human history. But why do these lost years matter? Why is this gap in Jesus' life so significant? Well, not only does it leave us wondering about his formative years, but it also sparks a deeper exploration into who Jesus was. Could these years be more than just a period of silence? Could they hold the key to understanding the depth of his message and his mission? Today we're going to take a deep dive into the most widely speculated theories surrounding these missing years. We'll look at what might have happened during these lost years and explore the compelling arguments that suggest Jesus wasn't just a humble carpenter in Nazareth, but potentially a world traveler, an ancient scholar, or even a figure of divine mystery being quietly prepared for his monumental calling. So stay with us as we unravel one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Get ready to explore the unknown as we try to piece together the lost years of Jesus' life. By the end of this video, you might just see Jesus in a whole new light, and you might begin to understand why these lost years continue to fascinate believers, scholars, and historians alike. Could the answers lie buried in ancient texts? Could they be hidden in plain sight? Stay with us to discover what history, legend, and theory have to say about the lost years of Jesus' life. Theory 1. Jesus as a carpenter and family man. The first and perhaps simplest theory about Jesus' lost years suggests that Jesus was living an ordinary life in Nazareth, working as a carpenter. In the Gospel of Mark, he is referred to as the carpenter when he returns to his hometown. This gives us a clue about his occupio in his early adult years. But was he really just working with wood and living a quiet life? Could the silence in the Bible be a sign that Jesus' everyday life was of great significance? Some argue that Jesus spent his years between the ages of 12 and 30 working as a carpenter, living with his family, and learning from his environment. And there's more. This theory not only speaks to Jesus' humble beginnings, but also to his profound connection to the people he would later serve. Imagine the simplicity of his life. Jesus, the son of Mary and Joseph, part of a working-class family in a small village. He would have interacted with his community, worked with his hands, and likely experienced the challenges of daily life in first-century Palestine. Many scholars believe that Jesus' humble life as a carpenter wasn't just a way to make a living. It was symbolic. His occupation as a carpenter may have been deeply connected to his message later on. In the Gospels, Jesus talks about building houses on solid foundations, about the importance of inner strength, and of constructing one's life in alignment with God's will. Perhaps he learned these lessons through his own hands-on work in the shop, building physical structures that also served as metaphors for spiritual truth. Some even suggest that Jesus' years as a carpenter helped him develop a profound empathy for the struggles of the common people. He wasn't just some divine figure detached from the daily grind. He lived and worked among the people, feeling their pains, understanding their lives, and preparing himself for the message of love and service he would later spread. This theory paints a picture of Jesus not as a distant, otherworldly figure, but as someone who was fully immersed in the human experience. He knew what it was like to toil, to struggle, and to live in a community. His ministry, when it came, was deeply rooted in that understanding. And perhaps the most fascinating part of this theory is that during those years, Jesus wasn't just silently waiting for his calling. He was preparing. It was a time for him to learn the art of patience, the value of hard work, and the importance of relationships within a community. Everything he would later preach about, he may have first experienced firsthand in the carpenter's workshop. So, was Jesus simply living an ordinary life as a carpenter? Or were these years of humble work actually a time of profound spiritual growth? We'll continue to explore this theory and its implications, but first let's dive into another possibility, one that's far more adventurous and mysterious. Theory 2. Jesus' journey to the East. Now let's turn to one of the most intriguing and controversial theories, the idea that Jesus spent his lost years traveling to distant lands in the East. Could Jesus have left the quiet village of Nazareth and embarked on a journey across the ancient world, traveling to Egypt, India, and Tibet? Now this may sound like the plot of an epic adventure story, but there are compelling reasons why this theory has gained traction over the years. Proponents suggest that during the period when the Bible is silent about Jesus, he may have sought wisdom in places far beyond the reaches of his small village. And not just any wisdom, spiritual wisdom from the ancient cultures of the East, such as Egypt, India, and even Tibet. According to some accounts, the idea that Jesus traveled to the East is supported by similarities between his teachings and the philosophies of Hinduism, Buddhism, and other Eastern traditions. Some have noted that Jesus' messages of love, compassion, and inner peace bear striking resemblances to the teachings found in Eastern spiritual practices like meditation, mindfulness, and selfless service. There's no direct evidence that Jesus was in India or Tibet, but the trade routes between the Mediterranean and the East were well established during that time. These routes would have allowed for cultural exchange, and it's not inconceivable that Jesus could have interacted with Buddhist monks or learned from Hindu sages during his travels. Some even suggest that Jesus could have been exposed to the teachings of the Buddha, who lived around the same time as Jesus. While there are no definitive historical records to confirm this, some parallels between their teachings, such as the emphasis on compassion, nonviolence, and the pursuit of inner peace, are undeniable. Could Jesus have studied under Eastern mystics? Was he learning ancient practices that would later influence his spiritual teachings? If this theory holds any truth, then the lost years of Jesus could be the key to understanding the depth of his spiritual wisdom and the universal message he would eventually bring to the world. Theory 3. Jesus and the Essenes. Now let's explore another fascinating theory, the possibility that Jesus spent part of his lost years with the Essenes. The Essenes were a Jewish religious sect that lived around the time of Jesus, and they are perhaps best known for their association with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain ancient manuscripts that some believe could shed light on the life of Jesus. The Essenes were a group of ascetic Jews who lived in the desert, away from the cities, dedicating themselves to a strict religious lifestyle. Their practices emphasized purification, prayer, and communal living, and they believed in the coming of a messianic figure, someone who would lead them to a new era of peace and righteousness. Could it be that Jesus, in his lost years, was drawn to this monastic community? Some scholars argue that Jesus may have spent time with the Essenes, where he would have been exposed to their mystical teachings, their rituals, and their ideas about the coming Messiah. After all, the Essenes' beliefs about purification and spiritual awakening align in many ways with Jesus' own message. The Essenes were an important group during the time of Jesus. They were focused on preparing for the arrival of the Messiah, and their teachings, including the concept of a new spiritual kingdom, likely influenced the early Christian movement. Some even suggest that certain teachings attributed to Jesus in the Gospels could have come from the Essenes. During this period, Jesus would have learned practices like ritual bathing for purification, meditation, and the importance of community and spiritual life. All of these elements show up in the Gospels in one form or another, leading some to believe that Jesus was profoundly influenced by the Essenes during his lost years. But if Jesus spent time with the Essenes, what does that say about his message? Was he simply a product of his time, drawing from the religious currents around him? Or did he incorporate and elevate their teachings to a higher universal level that transcended any one group or tradition? As we look deeper into the possible connection between Jesus and the Essenes, we begin to see a much larger picture. The idea of Jesus as a spiritual leader who didn't simply invent his teachings, but drew from the deep well of ancient wisdom that existed in his time. Theory 4. Did Jesus journey to Greece during his lost years? No definitive historical evidence in the canonical Gospels or widely accepted records illuminates Jesus' life between ages 12 and 30, a span often dubbed the lost years or silent years. The Gospels depict Jesus at 12, engaging elders in the Jerusalem temple, Luke 2:41-52, then jump to his ministry's start at around 30, Luke 3:23, leaving the intervening years shrouded in mystery and ripe for speculation. Apocryphal texts, such as Levi Dowling's 19th century, The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, assert Jesus traveled to Greece, India, Tibet, or Persia to study with spiritual and philosophical masters, though scholars dismiss these as pseudo-historical due to scant historical support. Jesus' gospel teachings anchor deeply in Jewish scripture and tradition, like the Torah and prophets, showing little direct imprint of Greek philosophy, such as Plato's forms, Aristotle's logic, or Epicurus's hedonism. Yet some draw parallels, Jesus' ethics echoing Stoic restraint, or Cynic simplicity, e.g., Diogenes' asceticism, though these likely reflect broader Hellenistic influences in the Roman Empire, not a Greek education. Galilee, Jesus' upbringing ground, blended Jewish roots with Hellenistic touches from nearby Sepphoris, a Roman-influenced city, though its culture remained predominantly Jewish. Modern esoteric and New Age theories propose Jesus roamed widely, including to Greece, to weave Jewish, Greek, and Eastern wisdom into his teachings, citing their sophistication as proof of broader learning. However, no first-century archaeological or textual evidence backs this, suggesting his wisdom sprang from a unique Jewish theological lens, possibly seasoned by Hellenistic currents in his region. The idea of Jesus studying in Greece arises from a yearning to bridge the gospel gap and account for his profound parables' ethical depth and debates with religious leaders, hinting at a vast intellectual and spiritual wellspring. Greek ideas, though, weren't locked in Greece by Jesus' era, spreading after Alexander the Great's 4th century BCE conquests across Judea, where Roman rule brought Hellenistic philosophy, Koine Greek, and customs. In Sepphoris, mere miles from Nazareth, Greek-speaking residents thrived amid theaters and gymnasiums, offering a young carpenter like Jesus indirect exposure to such thought. The Septuagint, a Greek rendering of Hebrew scriptures widely used by Jews, and figures like Philo of Alexandria, 20 BCE 50 CE, who fused Plato with Jewish theology, show how Greek ideas infiltrated Jesus' world. Some teachings hint at Greek echoes, Heraclitus's logos in John 1:1, or Cynic simplicity in Matthew 19:21. Yet these align with Jewish roots and likely grew from cultural overlap, not a Greek. Classroom. Travel to Greece over 800 miles from Nazareth to Athens was possible via Roman trade routes, but costly and unlikely for a humble Galilean family with no recorded means or motive. Non-canonical works like the Aquarian Gospel envision Jesus debating Stoics and Epicureans in Greece, but as a channeled 1908 text, it lacks historical weight, as do claims by writers like Nicholas Notovich and Holger Kirsten. No firm evidence places Jesus in Greece studying with philosophers like Socrates or Plato, who predated him by centuries, aligning his teachings more with Jewish prophecy than Greek thought, subtly flavored by his Hellenistic milieu. Theory 5. Did Jesus return to Egypt to study ancient mysteries? The New Testament records Jesus traveling to Egypt as an infant, when Joseph and Mary fled with him to escape Herod's massacre of the innocents, Matthew 2:13-15. They returned to Nazareth after Herod's death around 4 BCE, Matthew 2:19-23, likely when Jesus was 2 or 3, a brief stay that doesn't span the lost years from 12 to 30 but ties Egypt to his early story. By Jesus' era, Egypt was famed for its ancient wisdom, pyramids, hieroglyphs, and gods like Osiris and Isis, guarding esoteric secrets through priests and scholars. Post-Alexander the Great's conquest in 332 BCE, Alexandria emerged as a beacon of learning, merging Greek philosophy from Plato and Pythagoras with Egyptian mysticism in its legendary library. Texts linked to Hermes Trismegistus, blending Egyptian Thoth and Greek Hermes, surfaced around Jesus' time, touting spiritual alchemy and divine insight, though likely post-dating him despite parallels with Christian mysticism. Egypt's large Jewish diaspora, especially in Alexandria where the Septuagint was born, offered a cultural link for a Jewish seeker like Jesus. Yet, the Gospels fall silent on Jesus' life from age 12 to age 30, launching his ministry, Luke 3:23, with no early Christian texts noting an Egyptian return. Traditional views hold he stayed in Galilee, crafting wood as a carpenter and studying Jewish scriptures, preparing for his mission without exotic travels. Nazareth to Egypt, roughly 300-400 miles, was a shorter trek than Greece, feasible via trade caravans, though a modest family might lack the means unless spurred by a profound purpose. Egypt's polytheistic mysteries clash with Jesus' Jewish monotheism and eschatology, leaving no overt gospel traces like Isis cults or pyramid motifs. Still, some see echoes, Osiris's resurrection akin to Jesus, or his wisdom hinting at broader roots, possibly from cultural diffusion, not direct study. The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, 1908, claims Jesus studied in Heliopolis, mastering healing and alchemy, but its channeled origins lack historical weight. Gnostic texts like the Pistis Sophia hint at secret knowledge with Egyptian flair, yet don't place Jesus there as a youth, while Edgar Cayce envisions him with Essenes and pyramid priests, unbacked by evidence. Jesus might have met Egyptian ideas via Alexandria's Jewish traders or Galilee's Roman crossroads, perhaps recalling infancy tales, though this remains conjecture. No solid proof shows Jesus revisited Egypt from 12 to 30. Scholars like Marcus Borg favor a Galilean life, despite Egypt's allure as a nearer, wisdom-rich possibility. Alternative narratives, like Samael Aun-Weor's Pyramid Crucifixion Rite or Tricia McCannon's Myth Studies, paint Jesus as a global seeker yet rest on mystical reinterpretation, not records. X posts from March 31, 2025, buzz with curiosity. Some see him picking up Egyptian tongues, others echo Dowling, but offer no fresh proof, just old tales reborn. If he studied there, he might have learned cosmology, stars guiding Matthew 24:30, healing, mud miracles in John 9:6-7, or resurrection from Osiris's cycle, though Jewish roots suffice. Egypt's infancy role and cultural depth tempt the imagination, but the lost years stay a Galilean mystery, blending Jewish prophecy with subtle worldly whispers. Theory 6. Jesus' preparation for his mission. Finally, we turn to the theory that during these lost years, Jesus was not just living a quiet life, but was undergoing a profound spiritual preparation. This theory suggests that the silence in the Bible regarding Jesus' early years was intentional. It wasn't a period of nothingness, but one of deep personal transformation. Could it be that Jesus spent these years in quiet reflection, prayer, and spiritual growth? That his time in Nazareth was a period of intense personal transformation, as he prepared himself for the moment when he would step out into the world and begin his public ministry? In this view, Jesus' lost years were a time for him to connect with the divine on a deep, personal level. It was not a time of idleness, but of preparation, a time for him to understand his mission fully, to embrace the weight of his destiny, and to align himself with God's will. Some theologians argue that Jesus' early life wasn't just about mundane tasks or travels. It was about preparing for the monumental work he was called to do. His spiritual journey may have involved deep prayer and fasting, working to understand the divine purpose for his life, and growing into his identity as the Messiah. This theory suggests that Jesus' time away from the spotlight was essential for the powerful ministry that would follow. It allowed him to develop the inner strength and wisdom necessary to face the challenges of his later life. And when he finally began his ministry at around age 30, he was not simply a man on a mission. He was a man who had spent years preparing for the fulfillment of that mission. Perhaps the lost years of Jesus weren't so much about what he was doing, but about who he was becoming. A man prepared not only by divine intervention, but by his spiritual discipline and growth. This makes the mystery of his early life not just fascinating, it makes it essential to understanding who Jesus truly was. These lost years, shrouded in mystery, may hold the key to understanding Jesus' life and message more deeply. What happened during these years? And how did they shape the man who would change the world forever? Thank you for joining us on this journey into the fascinating theories about the lost years of Jesus' life. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel, The Bible Was Right, for more explorations of biblical mysteries and historical insights. Don't forget to give us a like and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on this video and its significance. We appreciate your support and look forward to engaging with you in the comments section.